Good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to the National Roundtable Diversity Management in Time of Crisis. This roundtable has been organized by IMS Luxembourg. So just a brief introduction about the Diversity Charter Luxembourg, that is one of the projects of IMS. It's that the Diversity Charter is a national project that has been launched in 2012. It's an unique national commitment text that is proposed for signature to any organization in Luxembourg, and it's supported by the Minister of Family Affairs, Integration and Greater Region, Corinne Cahen, and 7 privileged partners from the private and public sector. So just to give you a glance about us, we represent around 50% of the Luxembourgish payroll. We represent companies and organizations from different sizes, as well as from coming from private to public sector. For the private sector, it's around 75%, and we have until today around over 2,000 signatories too. The Diversity Charter in Luxembourg, it's a very active charter. We have different projects coming from diversity in general, gender, handicap, as well as we organize several projects. We develop tools and publication, and it's due of one of our latest publications that we are here today. So this publication, it's accessible online. It's free of charge, and it's in French and in English, and you can download it in the publication section of our website. So this publication is the diversity management in time of crisis. So what is the origin behind? It all started in March after following up several IMS clients and diversity charters, signatories, as well as the support and idea of our committee. We propose to gather all those good practices and questionings and doubts about the current situation that was quite unexpected for everybody. So what we did, it's different calls also with different experts, and we gather all that information in one publication. That publication is based in 2 big chapters. So the first is the immediate management of crisis, and the second one is the return to normal, between brackets. So as you can see in the screen, there is a big different categories that we cover from these different gathers we had. And it goes from the business continuity plan to creating and conserving the bond, the management of a team located remotely, as well as stress management. And from the return to the normal, we also discuss topics like the physical return to the work, management of the team, that it's in field and remotely. So I will not give you more information about that, because I prefer for you to go and discover the publication by yourself. And the idea mainly is to introduce and hear what our guests today want to share with us. So today we are welcoming 3 very active signatories of the Diversity Charter in Luxembourg. So I will now introduce them to them, and we can start our roundtable. So welcome again, and thank you to our 3 speakers who joined us for this roundtable. We have with us today Ms. Autumn Lelièvre, Chief Compliance Officer at HSBC Luxembourg and member of the Diversity Charter Lëtzebuerg Committee. HSBC has proved to be very active in the promotion of diversity and inclusion in the finance sector, and very often share with us their good practice and experience in topics as LGBTQI, inclusion, and more. Welcome also to Mr. Sing Long Chung, in charge of accessibility and disability actions led in the city of Differdange. The city is a very active signatory since it joined our network in 2016, and also a member of our Handicap Employee Working Group since its origin. The diversity and inclusion policies benefit their employees as well as their citizens. And our third speaker is Mr. Yves Elsen, Managing Partner and CEO of High-Tech Luxembourg, who just became signatory of the Diversity Charter Lëtzebuerg this month. High-Tech has been recognized by its commitment to monitor and promote their approach to CSR. So let's start with an open and general questions to our guest. Mr. Elsen, a few months ago, High-Tech communicated its interest to join the charter, and during our interview, you shared several actions done internally. So my first question to you is, how have the current pandemic and lockdown impact positively or negatively the diversity and inclusion internal activities in your organization? Can you share with us some examples? I think we cannot hear you. Can you maybe unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Everyone, and also in particular to my co-panelists, yes, of course, High-Tech is very pleased to share with you its experiences about, I would say, strange times we are going through since March of this year. And I have to say, for High-Tech Luxembourg, as any other company in Luxembourg, it came like a little bit as a sudden stroke that we had to change our operating mode. And what we did is that since early March, we had invited our employees that each night when they leave the office, they should take their PCs home, so that we made sure that we were starting to build up a network in case of closed borders, which fortunately did not happen, that we could have continued communication. And I have to say today, with some insight, I would say it pushed the digital operating mode across all functions in our company. I think it was for us since mid-March until end of May, early June, the way we kept communication among ourselves, but also with our stakeholders external to the company. And we were in a particular situation that a particular group of our company in charge of maintaining the Luxembourg highway network, we had a derogation under the Grand Ducal Decree of March 20th. They were continuing work nominal, so they were a little bit the housekeepers of our site here in Luxembourg through their physical presence. And what we did was really that we managed through systematic communications with our teams to keep social bonds among us. And what we did was, on one hand, each day our line managers in the morning and at the close of the business day had a briefing call with their teams, so to make sure that everyone was in good shape or was progressing. Because what we experience is that you have people who are either introverted or extroverted, and you have to make sure that your colleagues who may have an introverted symptoms, that they are communicating themselves and articulating and not afraid to talk. And I think that was for our line managers a big challenge to make sure that we kept everyone on board. On top, on an executive committee level, on management team level, we met virtually 2 times, even 3 times a week, just to make sure that we're all aligned. And my co-partner, myself, each Friday night at 5 o'clock, we send out a written report of the week to all employees to keep everybody on board so that everybody knew what was going on. And fortunately, no one of us had been tested COVID-19 positively. So I think that was a very important message to give to the teams, that they felt all not being physically present, but also felt part of a group and could continue sharing values we have. So I have to say that was a positive thing. I think negative thing, yes, if you are for 20 or 30 years in professional life, it's a big change. I think we're all human beings, and we have human interactions, so they become virtual. It's different, like the chat at the coffee machine or in the corridors, but we tried our best to overcome that hurdle in order to give people an environment where they feel at ease and can continue dedicating their skills in the interest of all stakeholders of our company.
Okay, thank you very much for that very detailed information that talk not only about management, how also its impact. So, Ms. Lelièvre, HSBC has been quite active supporting the LGBTQ community during these last months. One example is the organization of the global HSBC 24 Hours of Pride. How the current pandemic and lockdown affected the organization and the realization of these diversity and inclusion activities in your organization?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the welcome. HSBC in Luxembourg has really placed a huge focus on diversity and inclusion. We acknowledge that by its nature, companies in Luxembourg tend to be very diverse in terms of nationality and background. I believe at the last count we had 28 nationalities represented in our employee workforce in Luxembourg. And so it was really important to acknowledge the fact that diversity exists in many forms, and if we're going to get people to bring the best of themselves to work and be happy and really enthusiastic, what we need to do is acknowledge that people have differences, whether that be gender, nationality, personal circumstances, and of course, those who identify as LGBTI+. Last year, we were really happy to sponsor Luxembourg Pride for the first time, and obviously took out our funding, but also a big group of us joined the parade, which was magnificent. So we were rather sad in March, of course, because we were planning to sponsor this year's parade in Luxembourg and be involved more generally in the HSBC global activities. I think perhaps it was one of the easiest decisions that we made as a Luxembourg leadership team to say that we would not lose the focus on diversity and inclusion. In fact, when people are moved into a period of working remotely, that isolation can actually highlight the differences we feel. So we wrote quickly to Restroom Lëtzebuerg to confirm that we would sponsor the online Luxembourg Pride. And we also leapt at the chance to be part of HSBC Global 24 Hours of Pride. This was, I think, the first event of its type, where we took every location within HSBC across the time zones, and for a 24-hour period held 1 to 2 hour sessions in those locations, which our colleagues could join globally. In Luxembourg, we were really thrilled to announce a roundtable online. We had some speakers in the office at a wonderful 2-meter social distancing. We welcomed members of the European Parliament, the Dutch ambassador to Luxembourg, all of whom identified as LGBTI and are very active in their respective spaces, and hosted a really interesting discussion on the role of governments, on supranational authorities, but also leadership teams within corporations on building a truly inclusive environment. But we didn't just want to make it about talk. And so following this roundtable, we took the time to listen to some of our colleagues. And one theme that came out was that for some colleagues who identify as LGBTI+, using single-sex bathrooms can be an uncomfortable experience. We looked at our real estate setup and realized actually we had capacity on each floor to put in place what we've called an inclusive restroom. And these are really open to anyone who has a gender identity or a sexual orientation that makes them feel uncomfortable, but also those who have disabilities, whether they are hidden or something that has been declared to the employer, and whether those are visible or invisible. So we've now created what we like to think of as a safe space on each floor, where our colleagues don't need to perhaps feel the pressure of using these traditional restrooms. So I think this was really important that we said we're not just organising events, but we're actually putting into action some of our commitments. And I must admit that it was wonderful to have the space away from the office to reflect on our setup and say, how can we make our building more inclusive from a practical perspective?
Thank you, Autumn, for that very inspiring examples. And now, Mr. Trump, for a public organization like the City of Differdange, local citizens are a major concern. How did the COVID-19 pandemic influence the service and activities to the local residents? Did you adapt them based on target groups like seniors or disabled people, for example?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So Differdange is the third biggest city in Luxembourg. We have more than 110 different nationalities. So the diversity is a reality every day in our city. And we must say that the pandemic crisis complicated all the actions in regard to the diversities and to the acknowledgement that diversity is a reality. It's not something new that you can put over a cake, but it's something that we live every day. And the fact that during the crisis we had the contacts were stopped, no interactions were possible between the different services of the public administration or even with the citizens. We had all our resources and energies focused on something else. So diversity was not the priority to the internally and to the extent to the people. But quite interestingly, it had positive effects. So everybody knows that diversity is a reality, but they didn't have the conscious of the importance of that aspect, because during the pandemic came up the importance of communicating, acting in a way that everyone was reached. So how can you reach everyone? Only by taking the diversity of the profiles, so you can adapt your communication, you can adapt your actions, and you can adapt your methods to the different profiles and communities. So that's why it appears that something that I think most of the diversity managers already know, that the concept of equality is not always appropriated, because the public administration have a lot of message to communicate. They do a lot of things, all the current aspects of the life, the school, the businesses, the ecology and the social, the sports. So they are used to communicate equally the same thing to everyone. But by communicating, by acting in the same way, standardized for everyone, you realize during the pandemic that some profiles or communities are not aware of the message that was sent. So it implicates flexibility and adaptation, but you can only be flexible and adaptation if you have the right information on what to do, what to change, and how to adapt. And this is also the chance that we have in the city of Differdange, that we already have a great variety of profiles working there. So we could just take all the colleagues, and everyone just acted as a multiplicator, just internally to give informations, take care of that aspect or of that other aspect to communicate, and also on the outside externally, that those colleagues could act as multiplicators to be sure to mobilize their community and to raise their awareness that something is going to come. So it was not prepared, like it was for none of us was prepared, and it was interesting, that effect of raise of consciousness by all the concerned people.
Thank you, Xin Long. You said something very important. It's as I mentioned also before by our previous speakers, is how to take in account the different specificities of everybody, everyone that make us different, and how we can adapt in order to give them the best service or take out the best of them. And as you mentioned, sometimes it's not the same treatment that's going to be the best option for everybody. So I will go to my second question. The second question is the same for you. So I propose that we start with you, Autumn. So the question is high impact stress can lead to a loss of control over the management and stereotypes and enhance discrimination. How did your organization tackle this challenge?
I think the first thing we did was acknowledge this was a real risk. We've had to very suddenly transform from a way where most people were working in the office most of the time with that social contact, but also supervision and support that you get from working in teams that are in closer proximity to each other, to a really, really different environment. We acknowledged that as a leadership team, but also for our colleagues, they were having to work with perhaps in complete isolation, in a small apartment alone. Perhaps they were sharing a building with less space with others who were also working from home. So logistically, there were challenges. And we had other colleagues, like myself, in fact, who were suddenly also faced with school closures and trying to continue professional work whilst, in my experience, trying to teach my little children in Luxembourgish and German, neither of which I speak. So I think actually as a leadership team, we were all individually confronted with these different stresses. That said, we care about employee well-being, and we also acknowledged our clients depend on us to deliver a consistent service. So one of the first things we did was give some guidance to line managers. And as we heard from High Tech, we suggested that line managers hold daily check-ins with their team to make sure they were keeping close and increasing the frequency of one-to-one meetings. Because, yeah, as was mentioned, we have both introverts and extroverts in our teams, and those quieter people might not feel comfortable to share in a bigger group that they've got issues. So really making sure our line managers were accountable for being close to their teams and their people. We also decided that we would offer some training on resilience through crisis situations, and again acknowledging the diversity and that English is our working language, but it's certainly not mother tongue. We offered those sessions both in English and French so that we could reach as much of our employee population in the language they felt most comfortable with, and these were run through the first few months of the pandemic. I think we also acknowledged that sometimes a good counter to stress is fun. And so we had some wonderful examples of not just virtual aperos taking place at the end of the week, but themed check-ins. And I've seen some wonderful photos of colleagues in fancy dress and wearing silly hats, and just acknowledging that actually it's important to keep up the humor and those social interactions that people were so missing when they were removed from that office environment. So I think in short, we accepted that this was a real risk, and we moved very, very quickly to mitigate that.
Thank you very much, Autumn. Mr. Elsen, how did your organization tackle the challenge of management stereotypes and discriminations?
I think we were following a little bit what my predecessor already said. We were trying to keep a very close link to our teams, and also just to make sure that there were stress functions or challenges coming up, that people could really feel free to via Skype or Teams to call up their colleagues one-on-ones or in team groups, just to make sure that they could share what they would have done at the company premises anyhow, also to just look for guidance or just say, I don't know how to move ahead, do you have good ideas? And sometimes it's this principle of leaning back, which makes you, as the French say, reculer pour mieux sauter, I think makes you just jump up again. And I have to say, one of the things I want to share is that we also were getting very innovative in serving our customers. We have, and I don't want to enter into a large presentation of my company, but we are selling products around the world for testing equipment. And usually we have an after-sales service which goes and visits these territories. Now with the pandemic, we could not travel to our customers, and we proposed them an intelligent formula where they could ship the equipment to our premises for us updating here the equipment or just fixing the bugs they encountered and shipping it back to them. So that was an idea which was born by our technical sales team and Salesforce, who came up with that idea and which got the backing from the management, and we did it. And we made, I think, a very good push. we really had also a chance to have the voice of the employees really taking up and coming up with good ideas. And if you have such stories shared with your team under such stressful times, because these times are stressful, even today. And there you see that this shows people that if you have a good idea, it's not forbidden to share it, and it's just to come up. What we also try to do, be very careful about is, particularly in the beginning, is also to take care of those who were at risk. We really had a direct contact between my partner and myself with some of our colleagues who have problems, who are what you would call personnes à risque, or personnes vulnérables. And they immediately could, as of mid of March, stay at home all the time, and we arranged their work package in a way that they could continue working without being present on site. So these are very important things, and we didn't make a big PR about it. We kept the discretion so that people felt at ease and didn't have a feeling of being stigmatized to say, I have now to stay because I may have a disease or a health problem which doesn't allow me to come. So we were very careful not to have a stigmatization, but to have all of the 50 employees treated at equal way, the way they would treat it here. And I think that's very important, that people get a sense of a human dimension. And I think that's the biggest challenge for this entire diversity management in time of crisis. It's, yes, we use digital virtual rooms to meet or infrastructures to work, to communicate, to exchange, but we have to make sure, and that's the advantage human beings have, because we have human intelligence and not artificial intelligence, to keep a human face and a human sense. And I think that's the biggest challenge anybody on the employee or employer side has to assume in these particular times.
Thank you very much for that good example how the openness also to create a safe environment that let your employers to approach you and express their situation, their concerns, how to treat them in a very particular and respectful way. So congratulations for that very good example. So, so my question is the same for you, La Ville de Diverdange. How did you tackle this challenge to avoid stereotypes or discrimination during the management of your staff in this or citizens also in this period?
So that challenge was tackled maybe indirectly by, first of all, like if they just to send the first message, the most important over everything is the health and the well-being of everyone. So that was the great message, take care of yourself. And we have all the technical resources to help you. You need homeworking, you need material, you need everything you need another organization of your working hours, everything is possible. Just that was the first measure. We are all the same. The most important is the human being. Please take care of yourself. And after that, we are also an administration with more than 20 different services. And in this pandemic situation, some services are not essential to the all-day living. So, for example, we had to stop every sports activities. So the whole sports service was had no more real work. The message was, okay, we need solidarity. We are all on the same boat. So please, when we need you on the one place, on the other place, you are invited to join and to help and to give us a hand, because the main activities for the citizen, because for a public administration, its client is the citizen, and for its benefits, we were distributing masks and other activities, and we needed hands to do this. So by saying we are all in the same situation, let's do it together, and this we'll manage this together. But contrary to the first question, I have here a negative thing that appeared, that by just limiting the non-essential activities of a city, you are also and by helping the people to work from home and to adapt their working situation, you may create some isolation, and that's where the human relation are more important at every level of the management. because this isolation, because you're working in the sports service and there is no sport activities, you're isolated in your office or at home and you have nothing to do, because in that moment we don't need you to distribute some mask or something to the citizens. It creates isolation, and that isolation can only be corrected with the human relationships. So we have to value strongly the human relationships. So this equity of consideration was also a challenge for the management, just to say, I have to maybe invest some more time with that colleague because he needs it. He's maybe more vulnerable, he's maybe more isolated because his family context makes it more difficult. So I have to invest time in relationships, in consideration, something that we cannot do anymore at the office because we don't see it. We don't see it. So this is the challenge that was made. That was, I think, for none of us, it was organized and planned. But I can say that for the city of Differdange, it was discovery. And I think because the top management, the political, just gave us from the beginning the message, the most important is the well-being and the health of everyone. And health and well-being goes also with the consideration of you that you receive from the management. So this is how the city tried to lead in this challenge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chung. It's something very important that you say. Just to place the human and citizen as the red line, but the main important things, and just to adapt and how to treat everything and everyone in order to better manage the relation and the realities they have without having stereotypes in beside, just as the other speakers shared, also its openness and to hear and create a safe environment so people can express themselves as well as their needs. Thank you very much. So we will have a third round, sorry. And a new question is the same question for you. So I will start with Mr. Elsen. So you are leading a small medium organization sensible that it's already sensible to CSR. How did a diverse team and established diversity policy have facilitated resilience and the management during the crisis? You already shared the good example, for example, that you created new ways to contact your clients and the ideas come from different parts of your team. Do you have another example that you could share with us?
Yeah, I think there would be many examples, because I think being aware of diversities, that's one of your greatest strengths, in particular in a time of crisis, because you know how to formulate your messages, how you have to approach people, and it's unfortunately not one size fits all, but you have to be a little bit adapting your messages. I give you a very good example, then I come back to your question, is when we were communicating on the weekly reports, we used the word of lockdown. Now our workforce is residing in Luxembourg, Germany, France and Belgium. For Belgian citizens, the lockdown meant different things than to a French citizen, to a German citizen, or to the Luxembourg citizen. That was a very interesting exercise to understand how you convey the message and how you have to put in the nuance for everybody to understand it. But for us, we overcome it, and one of the great things as a new kid on the block at your organization and having signed the charter a couple of weeks ago only was that we also really leveraged and made people who were a little bit shy of technology to use modern digital technology and to say, if you want to stay connected, and we eased it up. Our colleague from HSBC said that they have some social activities. We didn't have that. What we did do, for example, was that we had town hall meetings, which we have on a 6-week basis, transferred to a conference platform where everybody was joining. And we had arranged for it that everybody could see the small pictures of the colleagues logging in from their place of home. And then we had also an interactive thing of asking questions and relaying questions. And I think there was a very strong bond where we really created it. Because for us, diversity is not just gender, it's not just age, it's not just sexual preferences, but we also say that for us, we have different other aspects of gender. It's respect, it's tolerance, transparency, openness, which we combine them with the skills of our business. We are heavily relying upon technology. We are heavily relying about creativity, engineering, and entrepreneurship and innovation. And I think we tried also to have these values and pillars of our diversity approach reinforced through the entire time. I give you another example. We had a discussion on, and it may be not over the past 6 months, is of the coming 10 weeks. We will have Christmas in a couple of weeks from now. We used to have a Christmas party. What are you going to do? So the idea was born to say, let's have a virtual Christmas dinner a week before Christmas, where we also make sure that people get a small pack home so that we can taste together and eat together things which we have in this parcel, which I don't want to reveal here because if the colleagues are listening to it, there will be no surprise. So let's keep a momentum of surprise. And that's a little bit how you see these difficult times help you promote also new initiatives. Because for us, joining this, we did it because we had an experience on CSR and we knew that we had to now to go further in order to push the boundaries and to make it for people at high tech a far more interesting working place and also take care of these new tendencies. And I remember from business school, my professors always said, diversity is a strength if you know how to manage it. And that's the purpose why we signed up. And last but not least, it forces people also to have trust. Because people working off at home, you have to trust them. And I think that's the greatest thing. And I think that's for me an equation of equilibrium. Either the employer trusts the employee trusts the employer. And I think that's a fantastic thing if you can out. That's the strongest bond you can have. That's respect, tolerance, and trust. And I think that's a strong message I want to convey in this conference to all participants.
Thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Lelièvre, I'm impressed by the diversity present in the country leadership and major incident group team, as well as the internal alliance you have at HSBC. How did a diverse team or established diversity and inclusion policy facilitated resilience and management during the crisis?
So yeah, it's correct. We're incredibly diverse, but in the Luxembourg context, I don't think that's so rare. I'd mentioned various factors like gender, age, personal circumstances, even professional background. We're not all career bankers within the leadership or major instant group team. What we'd also done as a leadership team, in fact, just a few months before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, was spend a lot of time exploring our different personalities and behavioral styles. And what this really showed us was that it wasn't just the fact that we're diverse in terms of background and those sort of key markers, but actually in terms of personality and behavioral styles and leadership styles, we're very, very diverse. And that wasn't necessarily obvious. As soon as we identified that, we found our communications started to become much healthier. We could sort of see the markers. We could adapt our communication styles to each other. We knew that our CRO likes the data, and actually he's very happy to spend more time thinking about ourselves. We knew perhaps our CFO was more focused on the immediate answers and was happy to process something quicker. So we'd understand very quickly that people had a different way that they'd like to hear information and a different journey to make a decision. And of course, we realized that this didn't just impact us as a team, but everybody. And the same was absolutely true in our major incident group, which is a broader team than our country leadership team, where again, we've got those very obvious markers of diversity, but also it became very clear once you've really dived into some of these different behavioral styles that actually we were going to have to adapt our way of working together to make the quick decisions that were necessary through the crisis, but also then how we convey the outcome of those decisions taken to our broader population. So I think the first thing was actually having taken the time to reflect on ourselves and how we functioned as a team, and then apply that to the broader group. And I think much as we've heard from High Tech, we put in place these very frequent staff updates and using different styles. We had and we continue to have weekly written updates by email. We also said some people prefer the more human contact. We took the initiative to roll out the Zoom technology very, very early on across all staff. And we gave lots of training in that to make sure people were comfortable using it. And we then used those as a platform for what were at the beginning weekly all staff meetings, which became quite interactive. People could share their videos. We've seen people's cats and dogs and children and the pictures they have on their walls. So we had a nice insight to our colleagues. But what we were also able to do with this platform was run live surveys, get Q&A out, so people could communicate with us in different ways. They didn't need to go to their line manager or reply to the CEO's email. They could just anonymously give us a word for a word cloud that showed how they felt about a decision. They could give us some questions. So I think really having done some time off as a leadership team to reflect on our differences, we were able to apply that to our teams and say, we need to reach absolutely everybody, but it needs to be in a style that speaks to them and gives them the opportunity to respond in a way that's most natural. And that will make our ongoing activities through the crisis the most inclusive that they can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lelièvre. And now, Mr. Chong, well, you already mentioned how diverse is La Ville des Differdanges, but not only in terms of origin, but certainly in terms of ages, types of life, different ways that every citizen make a difference in the city. And you mentioned also how the COVID also impact all your actions, how you adapt, and sometimes offer some challenges. Can you also tell us how the diversity that is reflected already internally in your colleagues, the staff of the Ville des Differdanges, facilitated the resilience and the management during the crisis?
Yes, so first of all, what is resilience? Resilience is you have to navigate through a high stressful and risky situation. It means that you need to adapt, that you need to respond to this, you need to live and to go and develop through this. It brings the challenges that you have to adapt. So to adapt, as I said before, you need information, so how and what do I need to adapt? And to respond. And to respond, you need manpower, you need resources, you need knowledge, you need competencies. And since public administration has to respond to the needs of its citizens, and that the citizen, as you said, is very, very diverse in terms of age, of nationality, of origin, of disabilities, of capacities. The main message from our leaders or our politicians was, okay, we are open to every solution that is useful. And we don't know what solution is useful. You know it because you are in contact with the people in our city. And to be in contact with them, you need to have a credibility with them. So you need to have a privileged contact, interaction with them. And this is possible because we have a lot of colleagues and we have a lot of direct contact with the population. So we could offer solutions and initiative that brings a positive answer to the needs to the citizens, but also internal for the colleagues. As I said before, every technical needs were just they are disponible. So you needed a computer, you needed something to work from home. That was possible, and this created two things. It created a kind of gratitude towards the employer, just to say, yes, I can work. I am something important. I'm evaluated for my employer, so I have my place, and I want to share it back. And sharing it back, I can give my input in terms that are not always seen at my office, but I can give input because I have a specific recognition, credibility in my community, and I have a specific capacity in that language, so I can help them to organize and to create that message, that offer that is coherent and that will be acceptable and that will reach all the citizens that we want to reach. So it's not only the technique, the methods, it's the easy part of it. The difficult part of it, I think we all said it, is that we have to be open-minded and to be flexible and just to search for the new solution with thematics, with things that we are not used to do. So it's new for everyone, and by having everything on board with that gratitude, with that value, it creates collective motivation to reach the goals. Yes.
Thank you very much for that very positive messages, and remind us one of the advantages of diversity is also the easy to facilitate the solution and enlarge the possible ideas that could give a solution. An example has been given also with high-tech and HSBC. So we will move to our last questions, and afterwards we will have our question and answer session. So it's remaining 14 minutes. It's the same question also for all our guests. We will start with you, Mr. Elsen. If you could share one recommendation to the audience for building an inclusive new normal, what will it be? Mr. Elsen, can you hear us?
Yes, I think, thank you very much for my side, and I think a learning I want to share is that for us at High-Tech, a new normal inclusive is employee service. We did one in July, just after the COVID-19 first lockdown, and we learned a lot out of that. First of all, we got a very good feedback by our employees into the manager of the company. They gave suggestions on improving our communications. We have a rule so far that we communicate, everything in written is communicated in English. But we got an urged message to say, don't forget those who may not be so good in English, in particular in a stressful time. So we are now at least going for English French, and maybe also we add German again. So we go for trilingual. That's one of the messages we got out. So for us it is, you have to be far more aware of also linguistic barriers in these times, because if you're under stress, you like to be taught, you like to be addressed in your mother tongue or you're in a main language. And the second point is, for us in the new inclusive, is also that we should really make this digital environment an integral part of our working tools in order to stay connected. That's a strong message from our side, based on a small sample of 50 employees located in Luxembourg.
Thank you very much. We will continue with Mr. Cheng from La Ville de Differdange. What will be your recommendation for the audience to build an inclusive new normal?
So for us, it's like just to synthesize everything I was told before for myself and from my other colleagues here, is just to value the relationships, to value the human. I think it was a new challenge. It was a discovery trip for every one of us just to navigate through that pandemic situation. We were all able to find quickly all the organizational and technical solutions in terms of helping people continue to be productive, and also in the same time just sharing the message that you are important to us. Take care of yourself, that's important. But there is an in-between, between working and between your health and being safe. There is all the human, the social context that were lost with the famous social distancing in our everyday life. But the human being is a social being. It needs interaction. It needs consideration. So value the relationship. Be flexible in how you do this, because everybody needs another type of value, but don't underestimate the importance and the effect, the impact of just saying to the employees and the people, you are important to us, you are doing a good job, we are thinking about you. So this is the complicated way, because not everyone knows and has the culture to do this. I can say in the city of Düsseldorf, it is not a culture for everyone to share this human relationship and to value the relationships. But I think it's even more important once you guarantee that the people can continue work and live by giving them the method and the techniques, just giving them possibility to enjoy the life. You will have gratitude afterwards, and you have solidarity, and you will have engagement. So that's how I see it.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Lelièvre, could you give us your one recommendation for an inclusive new normal?
Thank you. I think our inclusive new normal is a place where people are able to work in an environment that suits them. They've got the right tools for that. And most importantly, that every day they can bring the best of themselves to work. Now, to build that environment, I think the tone has to come from the top. So as a leadership team, we need to be absolutely open about our own differences, our own challenges, but also our own passions. And I think by being, as we would say in the Pride world, out and loud and proud about everything that makes us different and excited, and those things that really cause us issues, what we do is we create an environment where every member of our teams can also share with the same openness. And I think from that, we actually breed an environment that is optimistic and enthusiastic and innovative. And I think what's been really wonderful through the pandemic has been a real excitement about the way that the pressures can actually drive some better ways of serving our clients and building efficiencies into our processes. And I think that's become because we've said, you don't need to be afraid. We want your ideas. Doesn't actually matter if it doesn't work. What's more important is that we create that environment of people feeling that they don't need to find a courage, that they are trusted and that they're encouraged to speak up. But I think that only happens if there is a trust in a leadership team that is open. And so I think my recommendation would be to lead by example and then reap the benefits of what true diversity will bring to the organization.
Thank you very much. Well, this concludes the round of questions to our speakers. So we got one question from the audience. It's for you, Autumn. How did you include people who are not digital savvy? In the Netherlands, many organizations struggle with this problem, and ask how other companies can tackle it.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And with an organization like HSBC in Luxembourg, where we've got such a span of ages and nationalities and backgrounds, we're not all as digitally savvy as the others. So I think one of the first things we did was look at investing in the tools which are easiest to use, that also meet our security requirements. So absolutely, time was spent on those tools that require the least expertise, and then making sure training that we rolled out was inclusive. Not everybody can digest a 400-page user guidance, and we acknowledge that. So we ran, and we continue to run, drop-in sessions with our IT team. In fact, this is pre-pandemic, and I'm just going to go out and say our IT team are wonderful. I think they are the heroes of our reaction to the pandemic, because they have done a lot of work to build confidence in technologies over the past few years. But secondly, they've been there for those staff who actually couldn't connect digitally. They've sat in the office and helped people. We've had a wonderful setup with people bringing laptops and then being sanitized, and the teams working and talking people through. So I think the first thing we've done is really acknowledge that people do come at this with different levels of experience, different levels of confidence, and that actually there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to roll out of new technologies. So the first, I would say, is investing in the technologies that are the easiest to use, and secondly, having a wonderful IT team. And we're very lucky with both of those in HSBC Luxembourg.
Thank you very much, Autumn. So we have 5 minutes remaining. We have still one question for high tech. Mr. Elson, so it's quite impressive that small medium enterprise kept their engagement to embrace diversity in these insecure times. What motivates you as a leader?
What motivates me as a leader is to make sure that my employees have an environment and a workplace where they feel at ease, in particular in these times, where transparency and openness are part of the normal daily business, because you have today to address concerns of your employees. And unfortunately, we were not an island. We had also positive cases, unfortunately, in our organization, with the good news that nobody developed heavy symptoms. But I can tell you, we made sure during their quarantine, we kept dialogue with them. And also when they came back the first day in the office, my partner and myself, we made sure that we talked to them under 4 eyes, just to listen to them, how they felt, what was concerns. So I think that's for us as SME, a small medium enterprise, highest enterprise, to join IMS Diversity Charter, the reasons why we want to do it. But I'm not hiding that there is also an outlook to the future. I think we will also see on a legislation level that laws will come. I think the initiatives at the European Commission. And I think this will take another 6 or 7 years when we have national legislations coming. And I think, like in sports, I say it's like in the sports. We're on a training camp, and it's by learning by doing. And I think learning from others, learning together, I think that's the best way you keep an organization fit for the challenges to come. And for the DNA of a modern company, within the next 5-6 years, this will be an integral part of it. So you better have a first mover advantage and you go with it. And joining IMS and having all these other companies around us from the private and public sector, I think that's a unique thing to have best practices exchanged and adapted to the needs of your organization. I think somebody is on mute there.
Thank you. So we are having 2 extra questions, one for La Ville for the Fernandes and another one for the 3 of you. We will not have enough time to answer them alive. So what I propose is that I will mention both questions, and if it's possible for you to later on send us maybe some feedback of your answer, and we will share with CSR Europe so they can send them to the audience. So the questions were the general question we got, mainly for Autumn, but also for everybody. It's is there a specific responsibility for the manager? So that was the first question. Anyway, we will send them later by email for you. And the second question that was for La Ville de Differdange, will you agree that diverse citizens obligate the government institutions to be creative and respectful? So that's the second question we got. Unfortunately, time flies, and we only have 2 minutes before. So we will come back with answers to the audience. So I really wanted to thank you, the 3 of you, to take some time to share today with us what your company have experienced, the challenge that you face it, because not everything is perfect in life, and also how this challenge and this pandemic, it's helping us to grow and to become resilient, a beautiful word that David de Differdange, Mr. Chong mentioned. So as you can see, the current pandemic has, without any doubt, prompted many organizations to reinvent themselves, to get closer or even reconnect with their employers or clients in new ways. to innovate, to increase their resilience, and to adapt their communication methods to their ability to manage their staff in time of crisis. We have observed during these exchanges that with the signatories and organizations that clearly a diversity policy in place prior to the beginning of the crisis were helped to cope the organization with new ways of communication and new ways to manage this internal diversity. So we hope that this guide that we produce will be a source of inspiration for you, and to question you about your organization. So thank you very much for your attention, and we wish you a very nice afternoon.